New tech in the new expansion for Hearts of Iron 4. And today they're going to be talking about how they've optimized the AI to work with the new market system. Oof, this is tense because I feel like this could go either way. We could have a system that's amazing in multiplayer, but the AI doesn't take advantage of it because the requirements are too strict. It reminds me a little bit how the vehicle licenses system currently works. If you play single player a lot, you probably don't even know what I mean. But they added it in Death or Dishonor, and it allows you to buy equipment of another country, and it has penalties associated with less production. However, the big problem with it is the AI is very reluctant to accept any deals regarding it. It just doesn't want to give its best technology away. The times I've used it in single player, I can count them on one hand. The AI should purchase your equipment and ask for your equipment, but it never does unless it's associated with an event or a national focus. And then when you want to buy equipment off the AI, they're always reluctant to do it. Anyway, enough moaning about the existing systems. These are the new systems. Will it work like licensing equipment, or will it be something special? Planky, programmer of Hearts of Iron 4, we're talking today about the AI interactions with the international market. This will focus on the AI's role in gaining market access and selling and buying equipment. So the way the new market system works is you need to first be in a faction, which will automatically give you access to the market for everyone in that faction. Or if you're not in a faction, you need to request access first, which is very similar to how the licensing system currently works, because you can't look at the list of things to purchase until you've said, can I look at your catalog first? And they have to say yes to that. Mini Easter egg. The reason why they introduced that permission system for licensed equipment is people in multiplayer would spy on other players and check what equipment they've got to license, and that would let them know if they're working on, for instance, an advanced plane or advanced tank, because they would see it in the list for the license catalog and therefore know what kind of they're working on, what they're developing towards, which was kind of cheesy if you think about it. So here we have the logistics that you're already familiar with. If you're not familiar with this, this shows the deficit, how much equipment you're behind by to make up the amounts that you need for productions, operations, existing divisions. And this is the balance. So you are gaining per day 0.8 pieces of artillery, working towards that deficit of 197. And if you hover over these numbers, which a lot of people don't know about this, it gives you a breakdown of how many days roughly until this deficit is paid off, which is just a calculation between these two numbers. The reason why they're showing this is that depending on the larger the deficit means they're more or less likely to accept market requests. So for instance, if you're requesting to buy guns from Germany, but they're in a deficit of 18,000 guns, of course they're going to be reluctant to sell their equipment because they're going to want it for their armed forces first, which kind of makes sense because that's the way Lend-Lease currently works anyway. Have you ever had that minus 1,000 relations because they've got a deficit of guns? Well, it's because they don't have enough guns themselves, so they're not willing to give you some for Lend-Lease. It's kind of a shame that it's like that, minus 1,000, just a straight up no. There should be like exceptional circumstances where the AI would still be willing to give the equipment if it's a war that they care a lot about. However, that would definitely open up the opportunity for exploits. So as confirmed, you need to gain market access to view other people's offerings, so what they can be purchased off their market. The idea is you're purchasing a surplus of the equipment that the nation has, and depending on the level of surplus that that nation has of that said equipment, in this case 177 trains, will determine whether they're willing to offer it as a sell on the market. This is how it currently works. If they need equipment themselves, they just won't sell it. Now, if they have a surplus, they'll be willing to sell a portion of this surplus. This opens up the opportunity for exploits. So for instance, if you were like playing as, let's say, Britain, and you knew you were going to go to war against Germany, couldn't you be kind of sneaky and try and buy all the guns from Germany that they offer on the market as a surplus? Therefore, when the war does officially begin, you're going to find yourself against a Germany which has more of a deficit of guns, so it's going to be easy to defeat. Ooh. I have a funny feeling if those exploits do become real, Paradox are more than likely going to go for the minus 1,000 thing again, where they're just going to say you just can't do it because it opens up too many possibilities of cheesy behavior. And I'll definitely be taking advantage of that cheesy behavior. Who likes cheese? If you like cheese, subscribe to this video, right? And trust me, when the new expansion comes out, I'll be showing all the exploits on this channel. So bang that subscribe button. I love you. It mentioned the big challenge with this is defining the surplus threshold. So is it going to be like you've got 200 surplus of guns, but you're only allowing 100 of them, or 50% of those guns, to be offered as a surplus? And finding that balance is kind of the challenge that they're working on. And here, It's more of a breakdown of that surplus and how it could have implications on how it would be calculated. And the end result, in this case, a 20% surplus ratio. The current approach is they calculate the total surplus and adapt that based on a ratio that seems to move based on the AI circumstances. I can imagine if you have like 100,000 excess guns, you'd be willing to give away more than 20% on the market. You'd be willing to give away maybe 50% if you've got a huge amount of surplus. There's always that situation around about Germany in 1941-ish, just before Barbarossa, where they've got like 50k excess guns. So is there an opportunity there if you wanted to cheese the AI to try and buy all those excess German guns, let's say as the United States, before you join the war? So therefore, when they do the Barbarossa, they're going to be weaker. This opens up the windows to so much cheesy behavior. The devs are probably like, here we go again. If the AI is lacking some type of equipment, it will consider buying it from the international market, assuming there is someone offering to sell it. Oh, this is good, because at the moment, licensed equipment is never purchased. You can have the best guns in the game, the best tanks in the game, but the AI is never wanting to buy them from you, which is kind of sad. First of all, it decides of how many civilian factories willing to spend on purchasing equipment. This is where it gets complex. Second, it looks like all available equipment for sale and determines if there's anything that it matches what it needs. After that, if the AI has factories to spend and there is equipment it wants to buy, it's just a matter of deciding what to buy first and how much. There's so many factors here. It worries me a little bit because it might be something the AI might not use that frequently, to a stage where it might not even use it at all. I'm excited by the idea, by the way, of a country that doesn't have any mills and it just buys everything off the market. But is that even possible? Wouldn't that be kind of cool? This does open up the possibility of like a AI nation that is just an arms dealer and everyone else has to buy equipment off that said arms dealer, creating some kind of fun multiplayer scenarios. So this is the dilemma of making this kind of system. So there's 5 different attributes here of where the AI is happy to buy said equipment. Well, technically 4 actually, because this mentions about AI behavior. But these are the factors they have to take into account. The more complex they make this system, the less likely the AI will take advantage of it. But the more simple this system is, the more it's kind of exploitable. So they have to find the balance between the two. This is an example of paying off 19k of infantry equipment with just one civilian factory. And it could take a couple of years. Long-term weapon deals sound better before you do the math. So in this case, one civilian factory equates to 120 guns. This feels like a system that you never want to overinvest in because it just doesn't pay back that well. Unless you're in a situation where it's kind of mid to late game where you've got too many factories. But if I'm playing as like Greece or Yugoslavia or Bulgaria, I'm always going back to the Balkans, boys. I love the Balkans. Death on Dishonor, good expansion pack. Just adding one civ into it and making little trickle purchases from certain countries, would that be effective? I guess what would be the equivalent of 1 mil would produce per month to be the equivalent of this cost? And would it be more cost effective to make civs? Oh, that's devastating. If it figures out, if we calculate that it's just not cost effective to ever buy through the market and it's just better to make it all domestically, then surely I'll just be wanting to make mills, because at least then I've got my home built construction that I can develop on myself. Oh, that's devastating if that's going to be the case. There needs to be an incentive to make larger orders to get discounts, for instance. If I'm producing everything at home and it's more cost effective than producing in small amounts, then I feel like, what's the point? Ooh, the balance on this one is so difficult. Now, here is the biggie, establishing market access. So let's look at this. So positive is 0. Okay, we're not going nowhere with this. And a negative is minus 71. So base reluctance, which is standard because you just want to do that for balancing reasons. Opinion minus 10. So that can be flipped around easily. British trade influence over the Soviet Union minus 11. Interesting. Trade influence? So that's going to make more of a factor for spies, potentially. And in a faction other than the United Kingdom's. Ah, okay. So it's looking like if you're in your own faction, trading with another faction is going to be very difficult. So this feels to me more like nations that are trading with factions but aren't in that faction have got the biggest advantage. Once again, I'm just spitballing here. It's just a guess. So here are the options. Diplomatic opinion I really like this since I think the opinion is underused in Hoi 4. 100% agree. It makes it possible for you to achieve market access with a country as long as you're prepared to spend a sweet PP to maintain it. Winking face. Trade influence. It's interesting, it doesn't expand upon that. So trade influence is an old mechanic that's used to calculate whether they're more likely to trade with you, for instance, like steel. So if one nation has higher trade influence, they'll have the lion's share or the first dibs of steel over that said nation, and it can be boosted with spies and I think some other factors like relations as well. Some ideologies, like other ideologies, more or less make sense, and competing factors if two countries have different factions. This is going to be really interesting to see because there might be certain paths of old focus trees that if you go down that ideology and boost that relations, you might have access to a lot of good equipment on that said person's market. I feel in a way what sucks is that we have the system of Lend-Lease at the moment, which in the most part, if you go to war and play with a few factors right relations, you can get quite a lot of guns for free, practically for nothing. And now we're introducing this system, which feels like it has more barriers to relations. It costs civilian factories, and potentially you were overall getting less guns overall. So it kind of almost feels like this is like the biggest nerf to Lend-Lease has ever been, because now it needs relations, it costs civs, and it's more difficult to do. Once again, this is starting to steer me more towards this is a multiplayer thing, and the AI might not be very good at doing this. I like that you have the option to do it, other than licensing, which the AI is very reluctant to be a part of. The results of this is you tend towards something similar to trade blocks. Groups of nations will trade with each other, often with same factions or ideological lines. The boundaries between trade blocks are soft, however, and can be broken down with improving relations, for instance. Or, for instance, the spy option of booting trade relations. As you've noticed, since by blood alone, a lot of smaller countries have been bad at fully utilizing their military factories. And as soon as they have fulfilled all their equipment needs, they stop using their military factories. The reason they stop producing equipment is because they technically don't need any more equipment. And if you don't need any more equipment you need to produce, well, they simply stop producing it. As humans, we know when a war is looming on the horizon, there is no reason to stop producing just because we have enough. So it's better to be producing with a larger stockpile. And with the international market making it, you can suddenly satisfy our inner capitalist and earn something by selling surplus equipment. So when the AI gets to the point where it's got enough of excess equipment, they start transitioning to a surplus production state. In this state, they once again use AI strategy to determine what to produce. This makes it possible to script countries to produce certain types of surplus equipment, which in turn would allow for more equipment diversity on the marketplace and larger selection of equipment to choose from. Ooh, this is great. I like the concept behind this, but I would have liked an example of that being the case. Are they hinting at Sweden here? Is that what they're doing? So in summary, the new market, the AI will take advantage of it. It will buy and sell. There are some quite strict criteria, whether it's likely to buy or sell based on surplus equipment. And it feels like the proportion of weapons it's willing to sell on the market will depend on how much surplus equipment it actually has. It does seem like there are going to be some minor nations, El Salvador, that might have a lot of surplus equipment that might accidentally become trade market gods, which is going to be weird in a way, because if you think about it, they're going to run out of building slots. So what are they going to do with all those civvies they're using to trade back and forth? I don't know. I will say one thing. Whether it's cost effective to take advantage of this system is questionable. However, playing as a nation that builds up its civilian industry by selling its own equipment is going to be particularly spicy. The only fear is that is it going to be too much of a buff for major powers, which are already strong anyway, and then also a nerf for the minor powers? It's really interesting to see how this is fundamentally going to shape the game up. Is it going to be a minor change that's going to be ignored, like licensed equipment, or is it going to be massive, which is going to overhaul economies and change the way you play major powers? Ooh, I really hope it's the major change. Anyway, do you like this kind of content? Don't forget to like and subscribe. And if you want more of this kind of stuff, this video is next for you. I love you. Goodbye.